Girl. Molly, for real, we doing this now? We're really doing this now, Molly? Come on now. Oh, yeah, I know. I know, Molly. Hello, everyone. My puppy is having her way with me. Hi, I'm gonna go into another room. Hopefully she may follow me, but thank you for your patience. I had an appointment I was not expecting to go very late. So the puppy attacked me when I came in the door. And of course I had to give her some love so she wouldn't continue to attack me. So hello everyone. Molly, standing here with me? I know you're gonna want to get out after a little while. Hello, 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 hello. Good to see everybody. Bye, Molly. Oh, okay. You're getting it together. Getting it together. Okay, dress is here. All right. Hey, oh.
He heard the dog, so he was coming to see what's going
Right,
on.
he was like, I know. Comrade in struggle business, I get it. Molly, Molly's not here anymore. She ran out and she was frustrated with me. He's got a little attitude, Molly does.
Oh.
So, good evening, everyone. Get myself set up here. Someone just entered the room. Thank you for your patience again. Oh, I think I know who that is. All right. Thank you for your patience. It's been an interesting day today. And I hope all of you have been safe and warm. I was in the car dealership in Indiana, and not a single person had a mask on. When I tell you, not a single person, not a single individual had a mask on. Not a single one. It was very telling, let's just say that, where I was and what I was dealing with. So I was very, very concerned about the need to be careful. And I kept my mask on the entire time and did not waver at all. And it's been an interesting day. I've never been around so many unmasked people, and it was very jarring, to say the least. All right. All right, good evening, good evening. We have some folks here who are a little new, and I have some folks, Asha Prophet, I don't know who that is. If you can identify yourself.
Hello, I'm one of Fatumbi's mentees.
Okay, hello, and Anama, I think you are.
Hi.
Is that how you say your name?
Anama, yes.
Anama, okay. All right. Good to meet you all. So many of us are already familiar with each other, but I wanted to give everyone a chance to just kind of say your name, and that's it. If you want to say what brings you here tonight, you can, but I'll leave that open. Sometimes that feels kind of like people sometimes feel put on the spot around that because everyone has their own reasons, and we're all here ultimately to learn and grow. Ultimately, I hope, right? So I'll start with Katie since she's the first one in my box.
My hand's stuck in the bag. Hold on. Okay. My name is Katie. I was just talking in the Google Meet that I just ran and got some chicken to get ready for the Janet Jackson documentary tonight. So it's on my time. And that's all I got. I'm feeling good. Happy to be here. Happy to see everyone's beautiful faces.
Yes, as always. Isai, you're the next one on my box.
Hi, I am Isai. I am 15, although I don't look 15. And my mom is in the background. I think she might want to say hi.
Hey, Mom.
Hi, it's always awkward to have two different Zooms in the same house. So,
right. Yeah, makes sense, right? Good to see you. I responded to the email today. I don't know if you saw.
I did see it. Don't forget to say happy birthday to Dress.
Yes, I didn't think I'd see you tonight. Honestly, did it. All righty. Fatumbi.
Hey, I'm Fatumbi. I'm 23. And I just came here to enjoy myself with my bad friends doing bad things that actually are good things. So yeah.
Okay. All righty. Inama.
Hi, beautiful people. My name's Anama. I have she, they pronouns. I'm 18. I feel like I've been really up and down recently, but I don't know. I've kind of been enjoying letting people like walk out of my life and just like just allowing people to just show me who they are without like feeling like I have to react or like feeling like I have to like move a certain way because somebody else is moving a certain way. I'm getting my hair retwisted, so that feels really good. Life is, life is life. Thank you.
That's what you call a check-in, right, y'all? That's what I'm talking about. Go ahead. All right, Inama. Andrea?
Oh wait, I'm sorry. My
Yes.
bad. I just wanted to add on that I can't. What brought me here is to learn. I want to learn, so I'm here to learn.
All right. Very good. Thank you. All right, Dress, you are next.
Good evening, family. I am Drez. I am 21. Finally, I'm official. I'm here to hang with Fatumbi and all the mentees and all the fun and the turn up in the chat.
Right.
Hey, no, I'm here to I'm here to because E has brought us here, and it's always good to fellowship with everyone on Friday evenings. So happy to see everybody.
It is always good. Let me know how that second time around that 21 goes. I'll be working on my third soon.
Yeah, you are so funny for falling out the chair. Oh my God.
I'm telling you, it's like, I know that second time around is fun. I wonder if the third time around is like, that's what I'm going to get to next. That third time 21. Happy birthday. May Obatala always bring you all those things that support your health, well-being, and ability to grow and enjoy life and have happiness. I say. All right. All right, Erica, Dr. Elian.
Good evening. I stepped away when you were giving all the things you wanted us to lift up. So I didn't catch it all. I caught the name. Did I catch the age? Oh.
That was a choice. Freestyle it.
Okay. Well, I'm Erica Ilian. Professionally, I'm Dr. Erica Ilian. This has been a really interesting week. The day went by. The month has gone by so fast, and up until here recently, I've been feeling real cranky and not as loving and like compassionate in my normal stuff. And I just couldn't understand why. And it wasn't until I did a virtual retreat, half of yesterday and half of today. And I realized that I have been lacking community and just lacking being social. So my temperament was short with people. My concern and concern for folks is just small issues really weren't connecting with me because I had been to myself for years now, right? During this pandemic stuff and this not being around people. And it really caught up with me. And I saw why. And I'm so glad that I did that retreat because it was such a transformative 2 half days that gave me clarity and insight. So it made me feel really good to have really discovered that because I didn't feel pleasant at all. And that's really it. I feel relieved after being in that space because I could see a shift in just what's for me to come too. So I'm excited about that.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. All right, Rochella.
I think you said Rochella, but my internet connection is not the best.
That's exactly you say your name.
I think I'm at the end of the month where they start limiting your bandwidth. So I don't even know if y'all can hear me. So yes, I'm Rochella. I also go by R&B and I am 39 in Earth years. And I am very interested in just learning more. I actually have a friend who's coming into town and her plane landed a little bit early. So I may have to also leave early, unfortunately, but I'm really happy to see new people and meet y'all and see people who I know as well, just around this topic, because I'm definitely a student and continuing to learn. Thank you.
Thank you. Roz.
Hey everybody, I'm Rosalind. So happy to be here today. I am 25, just slightly older than Dress, yes. And I am here trying to not let Mercury retrograde take me out because it has been a challenge. Challenge. Woo.
Yeah. Understood.
Yes. So which is why I'm doubly happy to be here because I wasn't even supposed to be here. So I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, certain things, transportation literally threatened for me here. So thankfully things worked out. Prayer works, that's all I gotta say.
But Toby, what are you doing? What? Always causing problems.
Did you nothing? That's Katie.
I have been on mute.
We got to separate you two in the Zoom room. We got
right, you know what I'm saying?
Breakout room.
I'm gonna let the child about till I handle that. I'm just step back. I have two who can handle that. Let y'all handle that. The peacemakers. All right. So let's see. Aja, is that how you say it?
It's Aja.
Aja. Okay.
Hey everybody, I'm 18 and I came here to learn. I came here to just gain some new knowledge and information. And I've been decent. Life has been treating me well. And that's all I can say.
All right. Good deal. Ife?
Peace all. Nice to see everyone. What's up, y'all? Grateful to be here. I'm like, are we giving our ages? Is that what
that was a freestyle. That was we started it. Oh no, actually here at Eastside, somebody started.
Yeah, I'll just say I'm older than I look. I believe it. I think I've been told. I'm on mute with my camera because I'm enjoying some really delicious Mediterranean food. But I'll come back on when I'm done eating. I just want to intro
Sure.
in the video. I'm here to learn and to grow and to connect with this community. And yeah, I resonate with folks as being like, I feel like folks have been trying me. Universe been trying me. I've been feeling like my anger and my rage coming through and finding generative ways to work through that. Going to like recycling centers and throwing glass bottles into cans and stuff, whatever needs to happen. But also feel, grateful to be present here with y'all. Thank you.
Yes, and I'll say soon to be Dr. Williams. We're gonna pray that out.
Ashe,
Yay.
thank you.
Ashe. All right, and Nama. You already went, I'm sorry. Antonika.
Hi everybody. Yeah, Tanika. How am I doing? I'm tired. Yeah, I'm just tired. I guess the upside to everything is I started a new position today, which pays more money than what I was making. Thank you.
Because you've been working on it.
Yeah, so I finally got the paperwork done. So I'm at a school. It's within walking distance of one of the places I'm staying at. What else? I'm pre-birthday celebrations. I'm not telling my age, but I'm proud of my age. That's coming. My birthday is next weekend. So I'm happy, but also nervous. I'm here because of what Andrea said. Because of Ida. But also the first person I spoke that talked about community. I like community very much. I do a lot of things by myself. So when I come to these meetings, it allows me to come together with the community itself.
Yeah.
That's it.
All right. And Miss Edith. You ready, Edith?
Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting. Yes, so I'm Edith, and I've been having an okay week. I've been really tired. I don't know if it's the cold, but also like work has been a little hectic. So I'm hoping to just get more energy, and I started working out, exercising, so I'm really excited about that.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, I'm hoping that will help.
Very cool. All right.
I'm excited to be here.
Good to see you. I'm glad you came on today. All right, thank you all. I needed a check-in, so I wanted, because I needed a little space between, I know some of us want to maybe get on with it, so to speak, but I needed some space between being out in the world and being in this space. I needed to connect. So I don't always do the roundabout check-in, but I needed it today because I was literally running in off the street with a dog nipping at my ankles when I came in the room. So I said, well, I need to check in. Maybe we all need to check in. So thank you for your patience.
Yes.
We normally get right to it, right? That's normally the way we do it. But I wanted to give a little space between me and the outside so that I don't bring that in, so I can be present here with you all. All right, so today we are going to talk about Olodumare. And this is going to be as detailed as you all ask for it to be. This kind of topic, speaking of God in this tradition, there have been whole books written about it. The one I think I've referred to people to in the past, God of Yoruba Relief, is one of the more popular books that has been used and referred to.
Who's that by?
Idowu is his name, I believe. I'm gonna put the whole thing in the chat for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I have his whole name, but I want to make sure I get the whole name right. And I don't have the book down here, I have it upstairs. But it's a very widely respected, and I've read the book a million times, a million years ago. I may have it down here. Oh, look. But it's a really great reference. It was written by, interestingly, a man who was descended of worshipers who himself was a minister, a Christian. And so he wrote the book to challenge himself to put aside those things that he had been indoctrinated with, his family had been indoctrinated with, to really focus on what his forefathers had shared with him, and what his own, and his own ability as a scholar, and his ability to gain that information through scholarship and knowledge gained through those like Baskin and all those who have explored this issue, Diedre, to write about Olodumare. So God in Yoruba Belief, Olodumare, God in Yoruba Belief is a great resource for those who want to explore this concept further beyond what we talk about tonight. But I think that one thing we can just do is just explore questions that everyone might have. And I'll share, of course, my knowledge of what I have of it from what I've been taught. And give everyone a chance to share whatever experiences you've had with what you've learned and understood through this tradition about Olodumare and what Olodumare is. And I think one thing that is important to do with this type of topic is kind of parse out, because there's so much of intertwined of what we learn of Olodumare from beliefs that we carry with us that we don't even question, right? And so I think even giving ourselves space to kind of explore that in our own minds and out loud with each other is important, so that we can really fully embrace this idea of what God is in this tradition on its own merit, and to give ourselves space to question where we've learned about other aspects or ideas of what God is, and put them up against this idea of God within the Yoruba tradition and understanding. Fair enough? All right, so yeah, thank you. So we're gonna explore some patakis. We're going to talk about Olodumare. I use the word personification loosely because God is hard to personify in this tradition, and I'll explain why when we get to that. So wait a minute, here we go. So what is Olodumare? I have to fix that. What is Olodumare? I don't have an image next to Olodumare like I have with the other discussions of Orisha, because Olodumare is not an Orisha, right? So there's no image of Olodumare for us. Olodumare is beyond image, beyond idea of a single beneficent figure that is male or anything like that. So for us, we have to really kind of take those concepts out of the picture and kind of refocus it in another way. So the first thing is the word Olodumare. Oh, okay. We'll talk about the last class, okay? We'll talk about the last class later. Okay, so Olodumare literally means owner of the rainbow. And the rainbow is a metaphor for the idea of something that you can't capture with what it was in the beginning and what it is in the end. This idea of mystery is captured in the idea of God being the owner of the rainbow. There's this idea of this concept of this owner of something that can define the world in a way that's beyond what we understand. So when we see a rainbow in the sky, we see the double rainbows even in the sky, we see where it lands and where it ends. There's a lot of mythology around the rainbow and what it is. how it functions, why is it, what does it do for us? And of course, there's a scientific explanation, but in Yoruba concepts, it's this idea of the possibilities beyond what we know. And and so the definition that's referred to a lot for Olodumare is as the container of all possibilities. So anything that ever existed, anything in the future, anything in the present that we know and understand to exist is under the domain of Olodumare. And so for us, that means that Olodumare is not in opposition to any force that is outside of its domain. It doesn't compete with any other source of understanding or any other source of power, or any other source of moral standing or immoral standing. God is the is of the is for us. When we talk about the owner of, when we say the longer Mojuba prayer, we refer to Olodumare as, when we talk about Olodumare, we also ask for blessings and praise the day of the past, the day of the present, and the day of the future. So we give praise to all of those aspects of what is possible, because we understand Olodumare to be a connection to all those things. So for us, when we praise the past, we praise what has been, because what has been has resulted in our ability to exist in the present, and all those things in the past that good, bad, and different, all those things in the past that led us to be in the present moment, receiving opportunity to have a reading, receiving opportunity to learn about ourselves, receiving opportunity to make a course correction in our lives. We pay homage to that. We pay homage to that past because that past has facilitated our capacity to be present. The past that we talk about, when we talked about our prayer, the Mojiba prayer, and praising our mother and our father, right? Whether we know them, love them, like them or not, we praise them because they played a role in our ability to be able to exist, right? They were vessels in that process, right? And that's kind of part of our past too. So the past is more than just a physical presence. The past is all of the experiences that make up our experience that help us to be present. And of course, we pay respects to the present, which is a big part of what helps us to have consciousness and now in awareness of what is in us and around us. So that's our present. And the future, which is, we call Losiwaju also, the ability to see in the future. We praise the future because we use divining tools to support our ability to connect the present to the future. So our acknowledging the future really is an act of hope, is an act of opportunity to see that there is a future, and that our acts today connect us to those acts in the future. So for us, Olodumare is kind of encapsulates all of that in terms of being the owner of all possibilities. So Olodumare has many praise names, and the three prominent praise names we connect with Olodumare are Olodumare, Olorun, and Olofin. So when we talk about Olodumare as the owner or purveyor of the rules and metaphysical laws, we're really talking about that aspect of Olodumare as Olofin. So Olofin is really the energy or aspect of God that we work with when we encounter issues or concerns. So if someone has a reading and it comes up that Olofin should be beseeched to address the problem, we beseech the aspect of Olodumare, of God, that deals with rules and metaphysical laws, because we're asking for Olofin's intercession in a situation that God has dominion to transform on our behalf. So that's why when we look at that aspect of God, we're looking at the aspect of God that is in charge of how we are able to experience the life we have and be an agent in transforming the life that we have through connecting with God. So very rarely will you see a prayer or not a prayer, I'm sorry, a requirement in a reading to go to Olodumare as an aspect of God, because Olodumare is vast and considered to be unknowable, right? Getting to that, that's why we have the Orishas, because the Orishas are considered his emissaries, his or her emissaries, its emissaries. So Orisha help us to have a capacity to have some connection to an aspect of God. And because we say there are 400 plus one Orisha, that again, I think reemphasizes the idea of the owner of all possibilities, because plus one is the idea of expansion, or the idea that there's always something more that we may not know, that through our growth in our capacity to be aware and be connected and be present, we can grow in that capacity to know and to act on that capacity to know when we need to. So when we talk about the Orishas, we have a direct connection between the Orishas and God. And that gets to another question and point. And I'll talk about the neutral force, and I probably should have put that last, because I think that's a point to close on. There's a lot of question and debate about whether or not the tradition we practice is monotheistic in nature or polytheistic in nature, meaning that we worship multiple gods, or do we worship one God? And this debate will never be solved, and it won't be solved tonight. But there are different schools of thought, and those different schools of thought even argue with themselves, because on one hand, Olodumare is the apex, is the tip of the apex of our tradition, right? So Olodumare makes the capacity for us to know all the Orishas even possible, because they emanate from Olodumare. So in one sense, one can say that we are monotheistic because we believe in one supreme being that does have, to our belief and our understanding, dominion over all things. But because of the aspects of Orisha, because Orisha worship is so important and so pivotal and so central to our tradition and priesthood, and how we learn even as priests, learning the different aspects of Orisha and learning different Orisha who we do consider to be gods. Some say you have to consider it polytheistic and not succumb to this idea of this one God, which may, be kind of like a nod to traditions that consider to be true religions that do worship under one God. So there's getting into that discussion is real fun. I've been a part of those. So, but regardless of how we how we view that question, there's no question that the Orishas emanate from Olodumare. There's no question about that part. But how we view that emanation to be part of our belief of what type of system we are in is a whole nother discussion. Any thoughts or reflections up to this point? You think both, Isai? Or is that Isai who says he thinks both?
Yeah, that was me, but my mom said, "What do you think?"
Oh, okay. Well, honestly, I personally don't think it matters. But it's just this is part of the discussion. This is a religion. I've explained this to some people before. This is our higher education. This is our people who study in this tradition. This is a tradition of people who are studious. the Yoruba are very studious people. Anyone who's been around Yoruba people will find that out in a hot second. Very studious people. So those who endeavor to study and grow in this tradition are really in some ways endeavoring to be a part of our, our ritual university, right? So and so that's why these debates happen, because the questions are in themselves intriguing in terms of ideas. But personally, I don't know if it really matters to answer that question and to have a defined understanding of that question, because I think, and also because we have so many different aspects of our tradition, so many branches of our tradition, right? We have Orumila's worship and worshipers, which occupy a very distinct part of our tradition, even though Orumila is an Orisha. So people who are under the auspices of Orumila as priests, meaning Babalawos and Awos, are priests of Orumila. They're specialists in Orumila worship, right? And we call it Ifa and all of that, but essentially it's Orumila. Orumila is an Orisha. The same as Oshun, the same as Shango, the same as Elegba, right? So you have that aspect of the tradition that has their idea of how to work with that energy of Orumila and how the Orishas are organized within that understanding, right? And then you have, traditions that don't even have, worship of Orumila as part, like Candomblé. There's really, that Orumila never made it to Brazil. So there's no real stronghold of Babalawos there. So you have so many different aspects of how, and then you have the Glucomi tradition, which has its own way of doing things versus ATR. So you have all these different branches of the tree that all help people, all have ways of being present and how Risha show up as present, that have different ways of working with this idea of how we understand oneness of God versus this idea of a polytheistic tradition. So because there's so much of that, and I tend to look at all of the different aspects of it because I've come through different lineages with that and have Orisha from different lineages. So to me, because there's such multiplicity in how all of this even comes out and how people worship the tradition, that, to focus on and how those different subtleties manifest and how tradition is in Brazil, in Trinidad, in Yoruba land, in Cuba, in different places, that it's, to me, all those different ways of worship emphasize different things. And so I think I'd rather embrace understanding and knowledge of the traditions and how they manifest, rather than how one aspect may talk about this one God versus many. Like in Yoruba land, there's a lot of emphasis on the monotheistic piece, unless you go to the rural areas, and then it's different. And even the fact that in Yoruba land, certain Orisha are worshipped primarily in that community, right? So if you go to Ekiti, where Yemanja, or Ibadan, where Yemanja is worshipped preeminently, and you may not see Oshun, you may not see Shango, you may not see different aspects of Orisha, their relationship to how they relate to how Olodumare manifests itself is very different from a Lukumi, who upon initiation receives multiple Orisha just by nature of the initiation, versus those who say if you're initiated in Ibadan, you're getting initiated to one Orisha, right? So I think all of these different aspects of the tradition make it really difficult to come to an idea. And if you have an understanding of these things, like the fact that Orumila never really made it to Brazil because there were no priests of Orumila that went to Brazil in the 1800s, or honestly, not until the mid 1900s, really. So so it's hard to kind of see that and then kind of think about this question of this question of one God versus multiple gods, because there's so many different manifestations of the tradition in different places. So for me, it's an esoteric question that is born out of a lot of different ways we worship the Orisha, depending on where you're from, depending on where you're born and what your orientation to the tradition is. I don't know if I answered your question, but that's my thinking. Does that answer your question, Yamani? I know I went around, I go around the world in a day.
That was cool. Thank you.
Yeah. It's interesting when you really look at the tradition, you peel back these layers and you ask these questions. It really comes, and then you see how things are manifest. Like the role that Orishas have in Brazil is very differently placed than what they do in other places, where you have preeminently worship of Orumila. So all these things make a difference in how that question is answered. So this idea of those two things is just something that comes up a lot. So, you may encounter it the more you're involved with the tradition. So Olodumare, and Olorum means owner of heaven. So Olodumare is considered to be the owner of the place where we all call home. So the ruler of the place where because this is the marketplace, right? In this tradition where we live and while we're on earth, is where we are temporarily, where we exchange knowledge, exchange both, exchange through sacrifice, through learning, through lessons and things that we learn and grow and evolve that help us to have what I call our frequent flyer miles we earn for when we get to heaven. Our permanent place will be set, right? So Olodumare is literally the owner, or Olorum, the aspect of God, is the owner of our home where we will be immortal, where our spirit lives, where we will be immortal. So that's another aspect of Olodumare, which is why Olodumare has such prominence. And Olodumare is a neutral force. So that means for us that Olodumare is not merciful, is not beneficent as a function of our tradition. Olodumare allows for all aspects of our existence to be under Olodumare's dominion. So there is no separate hell that anyone would go to, would experience, would be punished by if they don't follow the edicts of this tradition. There's no imminent threat of lack of salvation. There's just life and lessons. And Olodumare teaches lessons that can help us to grow. But we have choice to either follow those lessons or not. And the saying, you can make your own hell on earth. That's kind of akin to how this tradition works. That's why there's no, you don't see a lot of proselytization or trying to recruit or trying to bring people to save people, because this is a tradition where we save ourselves through our deeds, through our lessons, through our intentions, through our relationship with our own head, with our own Ori. Hi, Molly. And that is how we evolve and grow and experience happiness, is through the application of those lessons that we learn through divination and working with the Orisha. You cannot chew on cords, little girl. So that is why Olodumare has to remain neutral, because that neutrality allows for us to experience all that we need to experience in life. One of the primary proverbs in the first Odu that that fall, the old number one, Odu that comes under the number one, Okana, is without good, we would not know bad. Without bad, we would not know good. And that is, I think, in many ways, sums up Olodumare. Olodumare teaches us, gives us awareness to know good from bad and bad from good. And without both of them coexisting in this tradition, in this understanding, in this tradition, we wouldn't know the other. So it serves a purpose. That neutrality serves a purpose for our growth and well-being. So it's a very different, for some people, very different aspect of how we understand God from other teachings. Any questions, reflections? Y'all taking it all in? Okay, making sure. All right. All right, let's go with the next slide. Oh, there it is. Okay. So we're gonna go over some patakis today. And the first one, I've spoken it to some of you individually, is the pataki of Obi. And so what we find in the patakis with Olodumare is there's two themes that you find in patakis. Oh, you cannot. I'm sorry, I gotta get this little puppy. You wanna come say hello? Because you're about to get in trouble, girl. You wanna come say hi? So
Hey, Molly girl. I'm sorry. She's so cute.
Sorry, she can't hear that well because she's
white
like, I want
streaking.
to get down. I want to get down because I want to get in trouble. So the one thing, there's one theme that I would say is really consistent with Pataki with that are feature Olodumare, is that you want to get down, Molly? You can't go under there if you go down, okay? Okay, let me know when you want to get down. Is that you normally have two primary actors in those Pataki. You have Olodumare and you have Elegba or Eshu, or which one and the same, right? And so oftentimes in Pataki, you have Olodumare who ends up being in the role of Olofin, being the final decider in the fate of a situation that has presented a conflict that has to be resolved. And that is generally Olodumare's role. In this part that I'm about to mention, that deals with OB, or as we like to, or as not commonly known for us in the New World as the coconut, Olodumare takes a more active role. So in this particular pataki, OB was a very prominent figure in the world. OB was a favorite of Olodumare and had a immaculate home that was very tall and near and close to Olodumare. And if you notice, with coconut trees, they have long stems that stretch up to very tall to the sky. And so for us, we believe that coconut Obi had favor with Olodumare, which is why Obi had this really beautiful fine palace that was in the sky, nearer to Olodumare than many of the other Orishas were. So Obi used to throw these fabulous parties. Everybody would come to Obi's parties, and you know, all the finest of food and music, and he was a great entertainer and gave everyone a great time. And Elegba, being Elegba, was like, this is a nice party, but I want to invite my friends to the party. And so Lekba's like, I'm gonna go ask the homies if they want to come. And so he goes out, and Lekba is a divine protector of those who live on the streets, those who are homeless, those who are beggars, all of those folks. So Lekba goes and says, hey y'all, there's this great party happening at OB's house. Why don't y'all come in and join it? I think it'll be great. There's plenty of great food. You'll enjoy, have a good time. So he invites all of these beggars from the street to OB's party at his fine palace. So OB sees all of these people come in with tattered clothes. They didn't smell like everyone else smelled because they lived on the streets. They were hungry, so they were eating up all the food. And he had a fit. He said, oh my God, y'all have to get out of here. He shooed them out. He threw them out there, really just went all in on. All right, see you later. Bye. So he went and threw them all out and literally tossed them out on their keisters. It was a big scene. And Legba was like, my friends, they don't belong here. They don't belong at my party. He went to this whole thing where they were dirty and they, unkept and all this stuff. And Legba was like, well, that wasn't nice. And Legba is considered the primary deputy to Olodumare. Legba, as I've explained in other classes, is the one who has dominion over fate. So as that has a very important role in helping Olofin, that aspect of God, really carry out those rules, those metaphysical laws, right? So the fate is directly connected to metaphysical laws, right? The same way karma is. And so oftentimes Olodumare will have Legba come and report to him and her, what is going on in the world. And Legba on one day came to Olodumare and said, I don't like OB, what he did to my friends. I invited my friends from the streets and they're humble means, and he treated them very poorly. In fact, he threw them out of his party and made a big scene out of it. And he said, and Olodumare was like, OB did that? I don't believe it. And Legba was like, guess you got to see for yourself. I don't know. That's what he did when I was there. And he was very insistent, said, I think his character's in question. And so Olodumare decided to see for itself, herself, himself, and went to OB's house dressed as a beggar, and had their hands out like this, looking for alms from OB. And OB took the beggar and threw the beggar to the ground, not knowing who was in front of him. And when after that was done, Olodumare emerged, shed the clothes of the beggar and revealed itself to be as who it was. And OB, of course, was embarrassed and put his head down, said, I'm so sorry, put his head to the floor. I'm sorry, I did not mean to offend you. And Olodumare said, okay, well, it's clear that what Legba said about you is true, that you don't have respect for those of humble means. And because of that, I'm going to punish you by banishing you from being able to have the same role in society that you've had. So Olodumare took the coconut and gave the coconut rags, meaning the brown skin on the outside are the rags that Obi wears because of the way Obi treated others. And so no one can see how smooth and pretty and sweet Obi is until they break Obi open. And Olodumare also decreed from that point that Obi would serve the Orishas and serve humanity as a condition of their lack of humility. So that's why when we want to ask a question of the Orishas, we use the coconut by asking permission first and then breaking that coconut open and using the coconut as a tool to help uncover questions that we have to ask for the Orisha. So that is one story of Olodumare stepping in to a situation that where Olodumare gave Obi a role in society. Olodumare did not banish Obi from no longer being a part of society. Rather, Olodumare said, "You're still a part of this world, but you're gonna have to take the big piece of humble pie in order to be a part of it." So I know I've said, what does pataki mean? Oh, thank you, Pas. Thank you, Ife, for answering that question. Okay, so some folks are coming a little late. So that is the story of Olodumare and Obi. And that is the reason why we use coconut to divine with the Orisha. So yes, Pataki does mean stories. It means, sacred stories of the Orisha that we use to illustrate points that give us lessons in life to remember, and helps to explain certain things that we do in the tradition too, which is when I just explained about divining with coconut pieces. And Edith was talking about evangelism. Evangelism is not being a part of this tradition, and as I mentioned, that's very true. It's all about what one person wants to do, their divine will, because we respect the head of all people to make decisions for themselves. And that's a part of every aspect of what we do. Yep. All right. Any other questions or thoughts or reflections about that story? Okay. Another story that we've mentioned before that also directly involves Olodumare. There are many, but another that directly involves Olodumare is the story of creation. Some of you I've mentioned the story to, others of you I may not have mentioned the story to. The story of how the world was created. Some of you remember that?
Yes.
Yes. Anyone want to volunteer to start in? But Jimmy's like, oh, this tastes good all of a sudden. So if anyone would like to start, and I'll fill in the blanks. You won't be all. I won't leave you hanging. I'll help you out. But anyone wants to start to mention that story? Okay, Fatumbi, go for it. So I'll start by saying it's a story out of the Odu Oshetura. And it's a very prominent story. And I always mention stories of Oshun, even if we're not talking about Oshun, because that's Mauritius. So this is one of those stories. So go ahead, Fatumbi.
Okay, so I believe that Olodumare summoned Obatala and told them that they had a mission for them. And a part of that mission was to create the earth. And so Olodumare gave Obatala a chain, a chicken, and something else. I can't think of it right now. So Obatala used the chain to descend down to earth. I believe then Obatala was able to pull some earth out of the water, away from Olokun. And once Obatala descended to earth with the chain, they used the chain to pin Olokun to the bottom of the ocean. So that's why Olokun is known as the deep sea. And then the chicken is used to continue to scratch out the earth. And so we have enough space for the earth now. Then Olodumare sends the Orisha behind Obatala, and it's mostly like the male Orisha, so like Ogun. I don't know anyone else, but so everybody's
Ogun, yeah, go for it. You can go ahead. You don't have to go into all of it.
Everybody gets doing their thing, you know, making civilization happen, making life possible, but they literally ignore Oshun when she like tries to give input and like support them in making the earth come into like being. So she was like, oh, okay, I don't need me back. And she goes to the moon. And when she goes, she takes all the love, the fresh water, everything away from her. So like nothing's able to happen on Earth. So all the Orisha go back to Olodumare is like, gee, I don't know what's going on. You told us to come here and do what we gotta do. We were supposed to do it. It's not working. And Olodumare is like, okay, so where's Oshun? I sent somebody else with y'all. Where is she? And it was like, yeah, so she's not here. And Olodumare is like, oh, okay, go ahead and go to Oshun and apologize to her, and everything is gonna be right because I sent y'all with what y'all needed already. And so they did, and that's how we got the Earth to be, I think.
Good. You hit all the main points. There are certain you know, other parts to that story that are told differently by different houses, but generally you got it all right. In the version that I was taught, Ogun uses the one that forges the chain from all the gold and descends after Obatala, and helps to pave the way for the other Orisha to descend from the chain. And yes, Obatala did use the chicken to use his feet. Some stories say chameleon. I've heard chameleon also, because a chameleon is also a part of Obatala. That's a whole nother thing. So yes, so Olodumare was the one who gave the divine mission for the earth to be created and cultivated. And he gave Oshun the mission to join them. And when they did not, they assumed she had nothing to do, although Olodumare made clear to her that her mission was also to support this process. And yes, Olodumare did make the Orishas apologize to Oshun in order to gain her favor and to ensure that there was fresh water so that plants would grow, so that babies could be born, so that humans could be well formed and kept alive, and so that life could flourish on earth. So Oshun is considered the source of life, which is why the source of the capacity for life to be made and to be sustained. And without Oshun, there could be no life sustained on earth. And which is why Olodumare made sure that she was although the youngest Orisha, which is why they never gave her any credence, because she was the youngest Orisha. And they assumed that the youngest Orisha did not have anything to offer, but Olodumare helped them to learn differently. So that is another story with Olodumare. And many of the stories, the Pataki speak of Olodumare being the agent to have the final word, the final decree on a situation that is happening on earth or amongst the Orisha, even in Olorun. So there are many stories of that speak of that process. Mm-hmm. Anyone else have anything to add to the story? Thank you, Fatumbi. Anyone else have anything else to add? Okay. Dashe and Rana, thank you for joining today. We are talking about Olodumare, which is for us the supreme being. And so we're just talking about Pataki that feature Olodumare as the principal agent of change, or of deciding, or of authority. Okay. So no one has any questions about Olodumare or the concepts of Olodumare, what Olodumare is. It's all pretty self-explanatory or familiar to people.
I have a question. I and this is like a while back. Someone a Baba in a class said that it's that like he compared Olodumare to a power plant and the Orishas to batteries, saying that when we pray, it's best to go to our ancestors and the Orisha rather than straight to Olodumare. And I've always wondered about that. And he was like making the comparison of a power plant. Like, if you just need batteries, why are you going to go straight to a power plant if you need the batteries like that? The Orishas would take care of what needed of that communication, like communicate, I guess, with Olodumare or make that that communication happen. So I'm wondering about that.
That's an interesting question. I tend to think that it depends on what is prescribed for a person. There are times when, and there are some Odu, like there's one in particular one of the first proverbs is Olofi is sad. And speaking to a person's need to address serious issues with depression. And that the person may be so sad that Olofi as God is sad and crying with them. And that's the thing about Olodumare. Olodumare it can be that they can be that entity that hears a person's cries and cries with them. And it can also be this vast neutral source that is unknowable, unseeable, unimaginable, right? So Olofi is sad is a way to talk about the fact that even though God is in many ways for us, and to your point, Edith, very much removed from a lot of our daily experiences, Olofin can also be very close to us. And sometimes going to Olofin is the way to get a situation resolved. But that has to be asked first. So I would say, and I'm speaking because I'm a diviner on it that way, right? So, people who don't divine may agree with that just in concept, because conceptually, yes, the Orishas, to my point before, Orishas are emissaries of God. So they are emissaries for a reason. And they make God knowable to us, right? All the aspects of all of the Orisha that we know and that we come to know more of help to make our knowledge of God more nuanced and more available to us. Because God as God is for us a mystery. So that's I think what that comes from, Edith, is that idea, which is very widely spread, about the connection between God and the Orishas, and that the Orishas serve that function and purpose for us. But we also have to always keep open that door for the possibility that we may need to seek out the divine nature of Olofin to help with a particular issue or problem, so that we can have a better ability to be an agent of change in our own lives. So there are times when I've had to send people to make an offering to Olofin, and it's generally a very specific offering that we ask for. You have to go on a hill, and it's the whole thing that you have to do. And sometimes that's called for. And it's a very ethereal experience to do that. And I normally accompany the person when they have to do that, if I can. And it's a very ethereal experience, and it helps people, So I think it really depends on what the person's needs are. And if it gets to a point where Olofin is looking to help a person to address a situation for themselves, then it's serious. It's serious. If a person has to make that kind of sacrifice, then it's serious.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense. Thank you.
That was a good question. Y'all are so quiet tonight.
Oh, I was gonna say something that excuse me. I think it was interesting that I've been going back over Tobe Corial's book.
Yeah.
Which even though you've told us a million times it's a great book, I didn't doubt that, but I have been flipping through it as opposed to reading it through. And I had kind of gotten confused in terms of how they talked about Olorun and Olodumare, and like Olorun being this big pot. The waters are like flowing into Olodumare's pot, is then waters kind of flow into, the Orisha, what I thought was actually really beautiful and amazing. But then I got confused, right, in terms of like, okay, well, now I'm confused. Like, is there a hierarchy? Like, I didn't really understand. And then, but one thing I kind of, you correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm thinking of it in the wrong way, but then I started thinking about, well, these, like you said, these are manifestations of the higher power. They kind of perform different functions in some ways, right? But still is the same power. So even like Olafin breathing life into, the clay bodies that Obatala created, or and so then I was like, okay, well, maybe this is more like all of the various manifestations of God, and that there's no sort of one name necessarily or one manifestation that sums up something so powerful. So, but so I'm glad tonight, after kind of reading that the last couple of weeks, and then you explained tonight, it really helped me kind of have a better sense of that, because I had gotten a little bit confused. So I'm glad you were able to explain it differently tonight.
Yeah, that's a good point too. That one of the functions, thank you, you just brought something else up, that one of the functions that Olodumare, particularly in the creation of the world, and generally is to be the owner of breath. Ela. That's the word for breath for us. ELA apostrophe, going in the right direction. Ela is divine breath. So one of the functions that each person that lives is believed to have in our tradition is the divine breath of God within them. And so, yes, I think that, so thank you for bringing that up. That's another aspect of God that that talks about who or what Olodumare is. But yeah, it is interesting to piece those things together, and in terms of looking at the question of whether there's multiple aspects of the same source or different sources. And we can get into another interesting question about that too. But ultimately, God is we see different aspects of this one source because it is a complex source. I see it more that way, that God is there is one supreme being that has different aspects to its function for all of us that is complex, that are complex in nature. And we can think of other things that God, in terms of Ori and the connection between God and Ori. That's a whole nother thing. The fact that we have God consciousness. So God is literally a part of our Ori, a part of our consciousness. And we call that consciousness Eleda. So that consciousness that makes us connected to Olodumare is present within us. And that's everyone. And that's another reason why I think God is neutral for us, because God has breathed life into every single person. Every single living thing has divine breath of God. So God can't judge whether somebody is one thing or another. God can't judge judge its creation as being outside of its dominion, because God is the reason for its existence in the first place for us. And so that makes for a real, that we all have connection to that divinity. Every person does. Every living thing does.
Can I ask a quick follow-up question to that? I'm curious if in Yoruba tradition, it's understood that, like, you know, like, would you say, for example, I am a divine child of God, or could you say, or would you say I am God? Like, do we differentiate ourselves as outside of God or as part of God's entity? And you kind of started to say, like, through the consciousness, the way that Olodumare speaks through us through consciousness, but I was curious in regards to the other point or question I just asked too.
I would say that we are all connected to that divine source through Elada and through Ella, and that makes us a part of God, and that's another reason why it's a very communal religion, and a lot of what we do draws upon the strength of the many rather than the one, because just as the same as we look at various aspects of God and various aspects of Orisha, communal religions tend to draw on strengths of the many, because we all have aspects of something that we bring to us to support each other, to support a goal, to support a process, to support, like for us, initiation. For those of you who've been around when we've had initiations done, you can see very clearly how some aspects of that works from your perspective as an Aleo. And so all of these things kind of loop us into a sense of community that draws on. So that's why that singularity of the I am God to me doesn't account for the communal aspect of what we do. In my idea of our being connected to God, because we are connected to God, not I, in a singular sense. So that's why I would not pose it that way. I would say that acknowledge that we're all like the grains of sand. We're all precious grains of sand on that beach of life. All of us. I hope that answers your question, Ife.
I have a question. What would you say, like, the relationship of Olodumare is to, like, the ancestors and to us? Like, is that a fair question to even ask? I'm just wondering.
Yeah, it is. And we kind of touched on that in the Egun class, if y'all recall, because as I explained in the Egun class, from what I'm taught, the ancestors and God have a relationship. So, and like I said before, we don't believe in a hell per se. We believe that there are different aspects of heaven, which is a whole nother thing we haven't talked about. But that all ancestors who go, particularly those that we provide light to, we provide our energy to their memories, our energy to their deeds and what they did while they were on earth. That's how they live on. They live on through and become immortal through our memories, through speaking of the way they cooked cornbread real good, or the way they sold this, or the way they already sued people, or the way they stood up for certain things, or they had deeds that the community could look on as having benefited it, right? So that elevation supports that ancestor to have a certain level of capacity to be closer to God, and in so being, have the ability to be agents for us with God. So they can be our frontline defense when we have a problem and have the ear of God, that part of God, that Olofin aspect, particularly that deals with metaphysical law, that can in turn support our help and help us here on earth. So for sure, there's a connection to the ancestors. And we have a role to play in that too. You know, we have a role in terms of making sure that they're not forgotten, that they're not put to the side, and that we support them and elevate them so that they can actually in turn support and elevate us. And with God's support. Your wheels are turning, Erica. You're not gonna ask no questions. Like I said, don't burn me up afterwards. I have a question. I thought about.
You know, I'm sitting here processing it in a way of decolonizing Christianity and hearing how the practices and the way that it relates us to God or us to the higher beings. Because I don't just want to, I'm sorry, Olodumare, as well as the Orishas, how it's so much going on in my head right now. So I haven't been able to really fully process, because one of the courses I'm teaching in the DMIN program at ITC, the seminary, is decolonizing methodologies. So for the prophetic problem solver. So I always insert all of me, as you know, in every space I go. So it's difficult for me not to try to parse through the differences, because it helps me though, for those whose entry points aren't quite there, to help to show this and that, and this being the westernized thought of Christianity to, you know, our Afrocentric ways of knowing, being through, you know, Yoruba and any different Africana or Afrocentric, if you will, practices from the different countries. So it's so much going through my mind. But when you just explained what you did to the woman's last question, the last question, I didn't get her name. Ife. That was all I heard, was decolonization. That's what I received in your answer. So it's refreshing, it's rewarding, it's awarding. I'm really processing, Diedre. It's not that I'm holding back. I don't have my thoughts together to even form a question, because so much is unfolding.
Okay, fair enough.
Thank you.
I love putting you on the spot, you know. Yeah, okay.
I also wanted to comment. I've like I said, I think one of the things I liked most of this religion is how organic it is, and you know, just not somebody not like pushing it in your face that you need this. And I really like the concept of we save ourselves, but also in terms of this neutral God versus the jealous God from Judeo-Christian belief systems, which I also really appreciate, you know, kind of just this caring, loving, but also, you know, entity that's going to allow us to live and learn within our own, you know, within our own. So I really also just appreciate a God who's not a jealous, or am I correct in saying
that's a term that's been used to address the question of how God has been kind of morphed into this having having this kind of really clear guardrail against what is godly and what is not, right? In the Christian sense, what is godly, what is not, and how anything outside of that does not adhere to godliness, you know. So in that sense, I've heard that term, the jealous God, referring to a God that does not allow for anything outside of a very clear system of thought and belief that's relegated to one system, and not allowing for other systems and ways of knowing that, as Erica is talking about, to coexist with it, right? So how do we, and so there's this insider outsider stuff that goes along with that idea of this jealous God. So I've heard that term used in relationship to what you're talking about.
Mhm. Yeah, no, yeah. So I think that's probably one of the things that drew me, one of the many things that some of the many things that drew me in. It just feels less asphyxiating. It doesn't feel asphyxiating as other religions, or controlling as other religions, and it's really just based on, you know, whether you want to follow your destiny, and if you don't, you'll learn, right? So yeah, I just just really appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so interesting because I was just sitting here reflecting just now as I was speaking about how certain other world traditions have, in a way, taken on that aspect in communal sense, like Hinduism. Like Hinduism has traditionally been considered a tradition that is indigenous, right? But it has been used as a political volleyball in India, particularly in northern India, in ways that have been really, actually southern India, in ways that have been really difficult for other indigenous practices to coexist with it, right? And so it can be, that can be a very tender practice that that anyone, no matter where we are in the world, can be clobbered by, right? So, you know, I'm thinking also, because some of us who study, you know, manifestations of Orisha worship in the world have very strong reason to believe that there may be manifestations of Orisha worship in India. There's been documentation of cowrie shell divination in India that is very similar to ours, and there have been folks who've been trying to unlock that question. And we have people who in our tradition who have been in India for probably, honestly, hundreds of years, have succumbed to some form of oppression as a result of that. You know, interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. That jealous God stuff is unfortunately a very important tool that colonizing has used to, coloniality is used to supplant many people from many places in many different ways. And create a lot of inside outside stuff that in the end just divides people. Yeah.
Yeah, I have some reflection or questions real quick. So I don't know, part of this, like, and I feel this like most of the time when we walk away from class, I feel like my head just opens up to like, okay, but then what came after that? And then like, what came after that? And so like with this conversation with Olodumare and like understanding them as like the owner of all possibilities, I know you like kind of don't like to talk about them, but like my next thought is then like, how do like Iyami Osaranga come into play into this, and then Ajay, how they come into play with this as well. Because like, I don't know, I just feel like in this conversation of like being able to save ourselves and like what it really means to be working towards becoming an Olorisha, like supporting other people and saving themselves, like That's what my head is at right now. I don't even know what I'm asking.
Yeah, I'm like, I hear a question, but I hear a discussion, but I don't hear a question. So I want to make sure I answer your question. Because well, you can look at Jay and Iyami Shiroga being one and the same. First of all, so they're one and the same. So I don't know. I want to make sure I answer a question because you mentioned where do they fit into all of this?
Yeah, because I guess like my reason for asking that, and this is like another part of a question too, is like kind of how in our tradition, like maybe not the benefits, but like how it differs that when we get initiated, we're initiated into multiple Orisha, whereas like in some places it's like folks get initiated into like one Orisha. And even in some of my research on like Oshun as of late, there's been like stuff that I've been finding where people talk about how like she is there like Olodumare in some ways, and like how they work with her. And then like I guess like the way that Ajay come up for me with that is like, then are they like initiated into the mysteries of Olodumare, or like
are Ajay's initiated to the mysteries of Olodumare? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I guess I don't, because that's how
question. So that's a very esoteric question. And and here's okay, I'm just gonna lay a couple of things out so people can catch up with what you're asking. So Ajay or Iyami Shiroga are the great mothers. They are not Orisha. They are entities that exist and that are respected by the Orisha and for their great powers. There is no initiation into the society of the Ajay. Either you belong or you do not. And you only know if you belong or you do not through divination. There's no, and even there, there's no membership. There's no process of somebody say, I'm gonna pay, $500 to join the Code of the Great Mothers. And good luck if you do. They're a powerful force that are considered to be important aspects of being able to address issues around birth, death, and righting wrongs in the world that in a way that only they can. They are associated with Oshun and Yemanja primarily in terms of their worship for those who work with them. And you only go to them if you need to. It's not something where, people just kind of willy-nilly kind of throw the Yamis in there to get people to work with them. It's not like that. I very rarely do I have Aleos work with them because it's a very kind of very important thing to keep separate because you have to respect them and bring them in only when necessary for things. Bye, Molly. She came in and went right back out. She's oh yeah, she's talking about that stuff. I'm out. In terms of them in relationship to Olodumare, they are a part of. They are not a part of. They are not an emissary of Olodumare because they are not Orisha, but they are a part of what Olodumare, part of the existence of Olodumare. I would say that. But they also exist separate because they have their own separate reign and own separate place that they live. It's a whole thing, but they are not Orisha. So I would not say that they are emissaries of Olodumare in the same way. They are, to me, the people refer to them as witches. I think witches kind of flattens the construct of flattens the idea of what they are, because it's witch is a very westernized concept. and cannot possibly encompass all that they are. So their role is to keep order and keep things in check as only they can. That is their role. And there are times they have to do that. They do that outside of the role of Orisha because they have, and there's a whole thing with them and Orumila having a pact with them in order to support so that they can have a working relationship and alliance. But in order to do that, there also has to be in a pact with Oshun as well. So they're different from Orisha. Okie dokes. I know I'm leaving a lot out because there's a lot to leave out. But I know you've been itching to do something to have a class with that, but I don't know if you're ready yet. I'm just gonna be honest. I don't think you're ready.
I receive. And then my other question about like how, like, I guess where we differ between folks who like get initiated into one Orisha and then like us getting initiated into multiple Orisha at a time. Like,
oh, that's kind of another class. But I'll answer your question. It's really it's a function of preservation in the New World. That's essentially what it is. The difference between having a culture built around the relationship with one Orisha that has been a part of that sound, like Oshogbo. Oshun saved Oshogbo from invaders, and they made that a place of worship for her, and they built great temples for her, and his mama Susan Wanger doubled down on that back in the 50s. And so there were priests who were enslaved from all of these different areas in Yoruba land. All right, thank you, Ife. Take care. So you have priests from Egbado land, you have priests from Oyo, you have priests from Dahomey, and that brought the Arara traditions, which is why we have Babaluaye. You have priests from all these different aspects of Yoruba land, different places in Yoruba land, different worships in Yoruba land, who converged into different places enslaved. So they brought their traditions and their orishas with them. I've related the story about some priests. The first priest who came to Cuba as a Babalawo, and also he was also a bata player, drummer. He swallowed his ikin when he was captured and enslaved. And that is how he was able to preserve the tradition of using sacred ikin that we used in Cuba. Those are the kind of sacrifices that, and he is our ancestor through our direct lineage. Our direct lineage and our elate goes directly back to him.
Hold on a minute.
That means that he had to swallow that ikin like several times in the middle passage.
There's more than 16. So that's the sacrifice our ancestors made to preserve this tradition.
What's ikin?
Ikin are sacred palm nuts. Thank you for asking the question, Isai.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're sacred palm nuts that are used by Babalawos to divine. So I have ikin because I received my hand to be filed, so I have my ikin. So if a Babalawo learns how to throw ikin, they take the ikin in their hand, and they throw it by having a certain number that remain in the hand after they grab them, and that's how they divine. And then they draw the signs in what's called Iyere Ifa, which is or Ide Yosun, which is a termite powder. So they use powder from termites to to draw the signs of the Odus. So it's a very different, it's a different system of divination from Dilogun, which is what I use. So so Ikin are the sacred divining tools that are used by Babalawos to divine. Only Babalawos, folks who are initiated as Babalawos can divine with Ikin, Isai. So that's so that was one, like I said, one aspect of how. And so him coming to Cuba, Yeye Toloku coming to Cuba, Oshabi coming to Cuba, and ordering a system of worship amongst the practitioners who came from different lands. So it was Black women who basically brought order to all of these different people who worshiped Orisha singularly in their towns, and brought it into a system of practice that can accommodate knowledge from all of these different Orisha and priests with knowledge of those Orisha into one tradition that we call Lupumi. And same thing in Brazil, Black women all day, every day. Same thing there. People came from all the same, and it's so interesting that even though there was no known contact between people from Cuba and Brazil, no known contact between people from Cuba and Trinidad, Tobago, no known contact between, you know, priests from Brazil and Venezuela, no known contact to priests who were in Mexico, in Veracruz area on the Caribbean Sea, side of the Caribbean Sea. There was no known contact amongst those different Suriname, no known contact, but they all developed a system that accommodated all of the Orishas as to be worshiped under one umbrella. That to me is powerful when you think about it. And under the auspices of slavery. I mean, just take that in for a minute. That you can recognize a system of tradition in all of these places, although practiced differently due to language, cultural, contextual issues within those spaces, but all recognized as Orisha worship. That's genius to me. I just, sometimes I sit back and marvel at that. I marvel at that. And they all had to find some way to bring not only their knowledge, but the tools and developing tools for that worship in those places so that it can last now for hundreds of years. I always say you can't outdo Black people. I'm being silly, but really.
Coach, that's the truth. And then so much of it looks like very, very, very similar to the point where if you're in one tradition and go somewhere else, you basically know what the flow of things are going to look like.
There's a thread. I talked about the divine thread, right? That divine thread that shows you that you're in a place where that sacredness is manifest. You can feel it. It's palpable, right? But that is, to me, to answer your question, Fatumbi, you know, the answer is in organization. That's the answer. Being organized and being clear that organization was necessary in order for there to be something to preserve and something that can have continuity. That's the answer.
Thank you. I appreciate you so much. Once again.
But I'm sorry, someone was saying something. Raina. Hey, Raina.
Hi, fine. Hi, everybody. Sorry I got off of work really late, but thank you all for the discussion. I am very new to the study, and I think I'm gonna thank Erica because I think she kind of put my reality in place. That like I was born under Christianity and left it, but I'm still like fully engulfed in it, and so Olodumare was like the first thing that someone mentioned to me about the Yoruba tradition, and they simplify it and say, oh, that's the God, that's the big G God. And so I'm still trying to educate myself. So my question is, for someone like me who is like very new and still trying to like decolonize myself from Christianity, is this the right, is understanding Oludumare the blessed place to start? Like, sometimes I'm confused on where to start with my study, right? So I'm like, in Christianity, it's the big God, right? So if you study the big God, then you're on the right track. But Yoruba is totally different, and I'm not sure where to start. And I'm not sure if Oludumare is the right place for the start for like learning. That's my question. Or
Well,
where is the right place to start? So,
well, the first thing I'll say is trust your head. Trust your Ori to lead you to where that place is. If that's what your head wants, trust your head to take you to that place. Because your head is going to lead you. It's not going to lead you into some plan, some idea that you can construct for yourself, because this is a spiritual journey, right? So if you have some idea about forcing yourself into starting with one aspect of it, but you are being completely immersed in another, then you should trust that there's a reason for that. A lot of people, like for me, and it may not even be that that defined in that way. I mean, my first introduction to the religion was, well, really, it was some students at Contra Costa College in the Bay Area who, when I was trying to organize my Black student union in my high school, and they were like, "Oh yeah, you see these beads on my neck? Yeah, it's gonna be you one day." And I had no idea what they were talking about, right? And then after that, it was dance classes, right? When I was a teenager, dance classes. And that's how they wrote me in. I didn't think anything of it. I was just feeling like, wow, I really like this. And I liked the way it felt. I loved the music. It felt like it was a powerful kind of connection that I was making. And I mentioned this to some of you also, how I didn't think that it was my path when I was in dance classes. I was just, dancing and feeling connected. But then, when I had this experience, my first quarter at UC Santa Cruz, where the person was talking about Odu and the Orisha, and my head was just like, it was like a whole epiphany happening in my whole mind and my whole body. I had this whole somatic experience. I couldn't even deny. I couldn't even explain. And I was like all crying and coming up to her, and she was like, "I don't even know about this. You got to ask somebody else." So and she had no idea, so if you leave yourself, so if you leave yourself open to just where your head's going to lead you, and trust is going to be in the place where you belong, and that matters for your growth and your development, then that's going to be the right place. Because like in the way Edith was talking about the fact that, why focus on the power plant when you can get the batteries, right? So you may have that experience. If you try to find the power plant, but somebody's like, "Here, you need a recharge, I got it right here for you. Here's Oshun right here. Here's Shango right here. Here's Obatala right here." Take that battery and work with it. It'll charge you. It'll give you what you need if you need it. So trust your head.
thank you for that. Yeah, I think somebody mentioned this earlier about the hierarchy and feeling like, oh, I gotta go to make sure I'm following the hierarchy, and that's
what we're taught.
It's really not about that. Yeah, it's really not about that.
Yeah, that's part of that decolonization, kind of breaking down those barriers too, about how do I, constructing your learning rather than just being present. Right, and having that being willingness to be present, being a teaching moment, being an opportunity for growth, an opportunity for revelation, reflection, opportunities for connection, all those things.
Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
I do have to say the hard part with that for me is because I also was raised very Christian, went to Christian schools probably the first 8 years of my life. So
religion every single day, is that you're taught the opposite, not to trust yourself, and that you are inherently bad and that you are inherently wrong. So so for me, like being raised in that tradition, the idea that you would trust yourself, it seems to me so foreign at times, because you're not to be trusted because you are inherently bad and there's something inherently wrong with you. So you're the last person that you should trust. In some ways.
You just hit the nail on the head, Amber. I mean, man, listen. You just broke open a whole kind of experience that everybody here has had that experience. I have had that experience. That conditioning is so bred into this idea of godliness. Godliness literally is connected to this idea of not trusting ourselves. Right, and not connecting our trust of ourselves to our connection to God. Right, because there's this mediating force that we don't have access to that has power to determine that relationship. Right, so we have to recondition our expectations of ourselves. Right, and recondition our connections to that space in us that is part of who we are and part of God too. And that's why, that's where, that connection and conduit is made oftentimes through, how we show up for divination, how we show up for being at the foot of the ocean. Like I don't know how many people last year I sent to go to the lake, right, just to talk to Yemanjah, because there was a lot of that need, right? So, it's through, rebuilding those connections through those actions and through intentions to kind of, and even when you're being in a divination, the divination, I go LRE, I'm asking permission from the person's head. I'm literally asking permission from your head to proceed before I even divine the first Odu. So your head is a part of that conversation before as having the last word. So any diviner who works with you has to trust your head. Whenever you're given opportunity to make an ebo with an animal, you are, first place the animal's place is where? Right here, right here. So everything is about you trusting your head in this tradition, your head being kind of activated to be a part of this, your spiritual temple, your spiritual consciousness being activated to be a part of whatever is happening. And so that is where so it's the reconditioning is active in this tradition, I think, if you really kind of connect the dots to what's happening physically to you when you have those experiences, beyond flinching, because it's like, I don't want that feather to get in my face. You're like, put the bird on my head. Okay, yeah, that's true, that's happening. But it's happening to reconnect you, and that animal's being connected to you in that way, right? It's literally, so we literally are putting the head front and center in the Ori front and center in everything we do. If it's a piece of fruit being put on your head, if it's coconuts being put on your head, if it's candles, if it's whatever, if it's a piece of, if it's food you cooked for your ancestors, for the Orisha, it's still all of the same thing, going back to literally putting us back into this idea that we had when we were little. We had this idea. When we were born, we had this idea. And then we were taught over time we were programmed over time to think differently. So the trick is to make sure that our kids hold on to what they had when they were born. That's why they have the naming ceremonies when they were born, right? So that the child can have a chance from the very beginning to know something of themselves from their own head's perspective. That's why we have those birth naming ceremonies with divination. All of that is a function of working with the head. So there's a system for reconditioning to be connected to our heads again that we try to do in this tradition. Thank you for bringing that up, Amber. That was really, really poignant.
Amber had the girls crying, me being one of the girls, because
Weeping, okay? Weeping. Weeping.
That's a very central truth to a lot of our experience. A lot of our experience. This is about reclamation. People, well, they say reclaiming my time, reclaiming my head, right? And it's work, right? It's work. It's hard work. It is work. But the rewards from it? Oh, okay. So Antonika said it's a name given after, oh, sorry. Oh, the names that we receive in ceremony are names that we are meant to receive at the point in time we receive them. They are not makeup names, right? So, because divination, remember, divination is about the present, connecting with the past and supporting the future, right? But it is about the present. So the names you receive in ceremony are about the name that you need right now to make meaning of right now, because the names, Yoruba names, are full of meaning. They're full of puns, they're full of plays on words, plays on ideas. Very, very clever, right? Very clever. I love it. But all having to do with your present reality. And so interesting. One naming ceremony I did, I had all these COVID babies, and I got some more COVID babies coming. I got 2 more COVID babies coming. 2 of my godchildren having kids. So this child, when we tried to choose this child's name, she took us around the bend. I had to divine 5 times for this child's name, and the child's name was I Will Wait for My Wealth. Isn't that a trip? But I would have, and then when I thought about it and I thought about the sign that the child had, I was like, oh my God, this makes perfect sense. But now she is starting with this idea of her parents know so much about what she needs in this life in order to succeed. And that's, you can't buy that, right? You can't buy that. So yeah, so those are really, really great. Really great. I'm glad I let this class kind of hang out a little longer, because I wanted us to get to some of that stuff, because I knew it was bubbling under the surface. But thank you, Amber. That was really beautiful that you gave that reflection.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Because
Yeah.
it's a struggle with daily.
Yeah.
Yeah, trusting myself.
Yeah. We all there with you. We are all there with you. And it's like I say, it is work. It is work. It is literally conscious work. But we're going to get there, people. All right. All right, good people. Any other questions or reflections? I didn't want to do a lot of heavy lecturing today because I wanted us to kind of talk more, and I'm glad we got to do that.
Yes, yeah. Are you going to talk about last week? I thought you were going to.
The last class that we had was about the reading of the year.
Yeah,
I think that's for Mama, but she's not here, so.
Oh,
yeah. We can talk, because I never did the note. It's been crazy week, and I did say I was gonna send something out to you, Roz, and I did not yet. So the reading of the year, well, I'll just focus on the reading of the year for the ELA. We have a little time, I guess we can go over some of it. If y'all want to jump off, because I know some of y'all already heard a lot of this. If y'all want to jump off, it's fine.
See ya.
Bye, Isai. Bye, Imani. Love you.
Bye.
Bye.
And then, yeah, if it's possible for next class, could we talk about what it means to like be claimed by an Orisha? Like, I feel like we talked about hand marking ceremony, but like, I feel like I don't know much about what it means to like be a child of an Orisha. So,
I think that's too. I don't know. I don't know. Would be the function of going into those kind of discussions.
Okay.
I really don't. I think you just experience it. Everything isn't a class. That's not, to me, not a class. That to me is just, you go through the process. You're meant to go through it, and not everybody's meant to go through it. So I think that's kind of revealing some mystery stuff. So I don't think that's something I would talk about. Okay, so for this year, Shango and Yemanja are ruling. And they are asking for us to make sure we give fruit to Yemanja. If you haven't already, you should also hang a small white flag over your front door, above your front door. And
what kind of flag? Like just
like
a cloth?
A little square, just a square piece of fabric. That's it. That's the ends are trimmed on, or sewn and trimmed. Just a simple white flag.
I got mine from what's that store called? Joann's, and they literally sell like the pocket square type like white thing for $1.
You can do that. Yep. And pay attention to the ancestors and to your spirit. So for those who have a regular practice of giving something to your ancestors, talking to them, continue to do that this year. They're going to be very important for us. And also working with your spirits. We are going to, as a house, we're going to do a Egun ceremony as a house. And we're going to feed the earth as a house and feed Ogun and Olokun on the same day as a house. And the real, there's a couple of things that came out this year in terms of advice. One is 2 big-nosed people cannot kiss. So it basically means we have to figure out a way to work together and determine if whatever obstacles there are between 2 members of the Ile, or if there's a conflict or any concern, be willing to work together, because Olegba is very clear that he is looking out to make sure that he's testing us to make sure that we do, and we don't let petty differences get between us or personality conflicts. Any disagreements, find a way to peacefully address them. And this goes in terms of Orisha family, that goes in terms of work, personal relationships with family, relationships with individuals you have intimate relationships with. And we need to look out for each other this year and do as much as we can to help each other this year and be of support. And only one is in love is another refrain from this Odu. So everyone, if you're in a relationship with, this is really related to family relationships and relationships with spouses or partners, make sure that you're clear about what you need to function in that relationship and what that person needs to function. This is an Odu where there's a lot of unevenness in terms of relationships, particularly romantic ones. And be clear about whether or not, if it's not working, move on. If it's worth saving, try to save it, but not to the point where you sacrifice yourself, because the health of the person who tries to sacrifice themselves will be compromised. and especially if it's a futile effort, if you're trying to save yourself with someone who really isn't willing to change, then that's going to only reflect poorly on you, and in a way that's not going to help you to be self-preserving. Hi, Molly. So be careful of that. This is a year also, if you're interested to move someplace, this is a great year to do that and have a new beginning. So if you have any plans to move any place, try to, you know, do your due diligence. This is a good year to do that. Be accepting of those things that we really can't change. If there is a situation, like I said, with a relationship where it's difficult and it's intractable, don't force it to change into something that you know it's not, because the nature of what that is just what it is. So, you know, be self-preserving in that respect. If the thing ain't working because the two people aren't right for each other, that is just what it is. No need to try to change it if there's no real capacity to do that. Sorry, she's all up in my stuff. You can't have that, Mom. She's in everything. So remember, this year is a year that if a person has been kind of on the fence about their work with Orisha, this is a year to kind of reflect on that and determine that if you are willing to commit and work with Orisha this year, do that. This is a good year to renew whatever commitment. If you haven't been coming to meetings or you haven't been doing as much as you would like, do your best to not to beat yourself up about it, but you know, do your best to try to recommit if you can. And stay focused on what's important to you, and not and no gossiping this year, no spreading of drama, no getting yourself involved with conflicts or issues that don't no, you can't eat that, that don't directly impact you. There's going to be a lot of abrupt changes this year. Like I mentioned, there's going to be opportunities for moving this year. We have to work with the Orisha, you know, in moments and times when there's a lot of instability and a lot of uncertainty and a lot of change. So do that. We've already, since the reading, we've heard of several people passing. My cousin Bobby passed away. His son is my god brother Asiel, who you all may know. He's the priest of Obatala. So his father passed. So he's also my cousin. So it's pretty, and it was completely sudden. No one expected it. He seemed to be great health-wise. No one saw it coming. So there may be times where we'll hear a lot of shocking passes this year. Folks, shocking, you know, news of people passing this year. Any need to attend a funeral, please let me know, because you have to do a cleaning. Because energy is very active this year. The energy of transitioning, people transitioning between life and death is very active this year. So please let me know if you have to attend a funeral, and I'll get the information and items to you that you'll need to clean yourself before you go. Everybody should work with their ancestors this year to overcome setbacks. And deal in the reality of what you are meant to do and be. Do not delude yourself into illusions of grandeur, because those illusions will distract you from what is important and pertinent and right in front of you. Anyone who needs to receive Orisha this year, particularly the warriors or Olokun, in particular, I don't have, well, there's one person that's not on here who has something with Anganju. All right, oh, she's gone, yeah. Work on that if anyone has anything pending. And there's only one person here to my knowledge that has, well, I think there may be two of you that have things pending. So that's it. that's basically it.
What about annual readings?
Yes, you can still definitely schedule your annual reading with me. Yeah, for those of you, some people like to go to EI for the annual reading too, which, I'm fine with if we talk about it. But she's booked solid through March already. I can get my reading my own EI. I almost didn't get my reading. I'm like, really? I can't read myself, but I like to get readings from my EI still. She is trying to bite. No, you can't bite that. But I'm open. I have openings for readings. Excuse me, y'all. I gotta grab this stuff. Because you about to get in trouble. You about to get in trouble, girl. Come here.
Flicking that nose like this.
What are we doing?
That's a big puppy.
Well, you talk about
20 pounds. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. Sister Licky, you've been so good about not doing that too. She's actually over 20 pounds now.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm. She came here about 10 pounds, well, 12 pounds.
Wow.
She don't miss no meals. Yeah. You back in your tail, I love you too. So that's the reading of the year.
So should I go on the to make the appointment with you? Should I go on the website or just ask you?
Yeah, I'm not with Haji right now because she did everything in person. At a time when Delta and Omicron were acting a fool, and I told her I was gonna go online a little longer. So she never contacted me back about it. Okay. So I'm not doing readings with them right now. I'm not on schedule with them, so you have to book it with me directly. And anyone else who may need a reading that you may know of, you can let them know the same thing.
Yeah, I do remember when we talked about the reading of the year last time, you mentioned white and bright colors, like to wear more.
Oh, that was for the, oh shoot, she got something off the floor. That was for the, hold on one second. I tried to get it because she dropped it and then I couldn't get it in fast enough before she picked it up again. She's fast, man. It's gonna come out in the poop, I guess. That was I was suggesting that for the reading out of Cuba, which is Ethiopia, that so that was for another Odu for the reading out of Cuba. I suggested that people consider wearing white or light colors this year, given the energy in that reading. And that's generally a good thing to do, to avoid dark colors if we can. Some people can't do it for different reasons. Either they don't have enough or it's difficult for them because of their work clothes or whatever, uniform stuff, whatever. But I just recommend that, just I would just say as a recommendation, that wasn't even included in the reading. I just know the sign. Mm-hmm. And it's a good practice with that sign in particular to try to wear whites if you can.
Is there any place that you need to place the white flag, a particular position?
Yeah, but in the center above your door inside. So when people come into your house, when you're leaving your house, you'll see the white flag right over your door.
Oh, so it's on the inside, not the outside.
Right, inside. And it's interesting. So there's a white flag recommendation for both our house and for our house and the I'm stopping the recording. I should have stopped.